This chapter is about equivalent fractions. In this chapter, you'll learn about finding equivalent fractions, simplifying fractions, and adding and subtracting fractions with a common denominator. So first of all, let's define a few keywords. Equivalent fractions. Basically, equivalent fractions mean equal fractions. So if we think about the fraction 1/2, we know that that's the same as saying 2/4. Or we say that 1/2 is the same as saying 3/6. Visually, if we think about 1/2 of a circle be colored, that's equivalent to 2/4 of circle being colored in. Or if we had a circle and it was cut in half, it's the same as saying 3/6 of the circle is colored in. So equivalent fractions means equal fractions. Simplifying something means to find a simpler and equivalent fraction. So it basically contains a simpler number. So if I have the fraction 3/6, the more simpler way of saying that is 1/2. If I have because all I had to do was I divided the top by 3 and the bottom by 3 to get 1/2. If I had a fraction like 5/15, this more simple way of saying the same thing is 1/3, because I divide the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. Okay, so it's basically finding a more simple way of expressing the fraction. But we'll go into more details further on. Now, first, we need to find equivalent fractions. So the instructions read, complete these equivalent fractions. So in the first example, we have 2/3 equals something over 15. And since we know they have to be equal, we have to think to ourselves, what do I multiply 3 by to get 15? I know I have to times it by 5. So you have to do the same thing on the top. 2 times 5 will make 10. So 2/3 is equivalent to 10/15. At this time, pause and try to do the remaining. So if we look at B now, we have 4/25 is equal to 16 over some number. So they have to be equivalent, and I have to ask myself, 4 times what number makes 16? 4 times 4 makes 16. So what I do to the top, I must do to the bottom. So 25 times 4 makes 100. So 4/25 is equivalent to 16 out of 100. And the next one's a little bit trickier because there's 4 fractions. So what's important here is we always go back to 4/5. So 4/5 is equal to something out of 10. I know you have to multiply by 2, so 4 times 2 is 8. So it's equal to 8/10. Now, to jump to the next one, going from 8/10 to something 12 over something is actually quite hard. But you know what we can do is we actually can go back to the first fraction, the original fraction, 4/5. So 4/5 is equal to 12 over what number? Well, I know I multiply by 3 on the top, so I have to multiply by 3 on the bottom, which makes 15. So the second number is 15. Then for the last fraction, we again go back to the original. 4/5 is equal to what over 20? So I know I have to multiply by 4 on the bottom, so I must do that to the top. That makes 16. So 4/5 is the same as saying 16/20. So 4/5 can be said as 8/10. It can also be 12/15. It could also be 16/20. They're all the same thing. It's just when the denominator, the bottom number, gets bigger, that just means if you had a pizza, there's more slices. And then on the bottom one, you have 1/3 is equal to something out of 6. Here, we multiply by 2 on the bottom, we multiply by 2 on the top to give us 2/6. Then you go back to the original, 1/3 is equal to 3 over some number. Here I know I multiply by 3, so we multiply by 3 to get 9 on the bottom. And then we have again 1/3 is equal to some number over 12, so I know we multiply by 4 on the top and the bottom to get 4/12. So 1/3 is the same as saying 2/6, which is equivalent to 3/9, which is equivalent to 4/12. Now we have to simplify fractions. So simplifying fractions, we go the opposite way. We divide. And we have to divide by factors that they have in common. And you can use multiple steps or you can do it in one step. It depends on how familiar you are with your multiplication times tables. So 12/30. I want to make this more simple. So I'm going to divide by a number I know they have in common. I know I can divide by 2. So 12 divided by 2 gives me 6, and 30 divided by 2 makes 15. Then I have to ask myself, do 6 and 15 have anything else in common? Yeah, I can divide them by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now, do 2 and 5 have any factors in common? No. So this is my final answer, 2/5. Now, you could have also just gone directly in. Some of you just look at it, you say to yourself, oh, I know I can divide both by 6. And if you divide 12 by 6, you have 2, and 30 by 6, you have 5, and you get to the answer right away. Both ways are correct, and again, it goes into how familiar you are with your multiplication times tables. So at this time, pause and complete B and C. Okay, so 16/20 can be divided by 4. And when we divide by 4, that leaves us with 4/5. That's our final answer. 15/45 can be divided by 5, top and bottom. And that will leave us with 3/9. And actually, we can divide both these by 3, leaving us with 1/3. So if you got to 3/9, that answer is good, but 1/3 is even better because that's the simplest form. And then finally, we get to 3/5 plus 1/5. We're adding and subtracting fractions with a common denominator. This is really easy. All you have to do is keep the denominator the same, 5. Then you just have to add 3 plus 1, the numerators. And 3 plus 1 is 4/5. That's it. And the reason why this works is because if I had a pan of brownies and I had divided this into 5 segments because the denominator is 5, and I had eaten 3 parts of it out of 5, and then my husband came by and ate 1 more part of it, how many parts altogether have been eaten? Oh, that makes 4/5. So at this time, go ahead and pause and complete the remaining B, C, and D. So here we go. 4/9 plus 2/9 is basically the same thing as saying 4 plus 2 out of 9, and that makes 6/9. And we can actually simplify this fraction. We can divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3 as well, which makes this into 2/3. If your answer was 6/9, that's good, but 2/3 is even better. Anytime you can simplify a fraction, you should. Now in the next piece, we have a subtraction problem. 16 take away 4/20. So it's the same thing. Out of 20, all you have to do is 16 take away 4, which makes 12/20. Now, all you have to do now is simplify. So we can simplify and divide both of them actually by 4, which leaves us with 3/5. And that's your final answer. On the last problem, you have 10 12ths take away 9 12ths. So 10 take away 9 out of 12, which leaves us with 1/12. And you can't go any further with that, and that's it. That's the end.